Bills defensive end A.J. Epenesa for this Timbits Timeout. Timbits Timeout presented by, of course, Tim Hortons, where we solicit the fans to ask Bills unique questions. We'll get to that question in just a second, but we've got some of our own first. So, A.J., first and foremost, coming out of that Rams game, I'm sure Coach has kind of laid this out to you guys as well. After the game, he said, we didn't win at the line of scrimmage, and that often leads to a trickle-down effect of problems, both on offense and defense. In reviewing the film, kind of what was your assessment similar? Like, hey, we didn't win enough up front? Or?
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, as a defense and we're any football team, it starts up front. You have to win the line of scrimmage to be able to create negative plays against their offense. And then for our offense, we want them to win the line of scrimmage to gain yards, you know. So that's where the game is won and lost, and we didn't play up to our standard last week. And so we know what the standard is. We're pros, we're disciplined, and so that's the idea is this week kind of get back into our routine and bounce back and respond this coming weekend.
Terrell Bernard, after the game, he said, he was like, well, we just didn't play the way we practiced. We didn't execute the game plans. What was the vibe coming back like on the flight? When you guys started talking about the game and, you know, coughing up that many points and the way those guys were elite. I mean, the two wideouts and
they played very well.
So you got that going. But how did your conversation go and the way you guys talk about it now as it's going past?
We we broke it down. We're all professionals. You know, we can hold each other accountable. We can tell each other like you need to do this. I need to do this. It's all about looking in the mirror first and seeing what I could do better to help our defense win and be more successful. And I think everybody's taken that step this week is kind of looking at themselves, see how they can improve. And if all 11 guys do that, you know, we're going to make some jumps this weekend and play a little bit better.
I know I don't have to tell you this, but Detroit uses a lot of the same offensive concepts as the Rams do. You know, that bootleg passing game of Stafford was a problem pretty much all afternoon. I imagine, and I'm not looking for answers here, but I imagine you guys are putting a plan together to at least better handle that, knowing Goff is probably going to do some of the same stuff.
Right. No, they're a similar offense. They do a lot of motions, pre-snap, stuff like that to try to get our defense looking left, looking right, and not seeing what's right in front of them. And so a lot of teams do that nowadays. Detroit's had a lot of success with that, and they have some really good players on their offense. And so that just means we got to really hone in, stay dialed into what we see, what our keys are, and not see all that eye candy so that we can make our plays.
Yeah.
How do you guys handle I mean, you're in the hunt for the 1 seed. You know you're chasing cheese. How frustrating is it to look up and see them doink one off for the you know what I mean?
They've won every different way possible.
They're blocking field goals to save a win. They're doinking it off the upright.
They're getting the other team fumbling a snap at the end of a game.
All that stuff's happening. How frustrating is it for you guys? I mean, you're putting together a very nice season, a 10-3 record going into Week 14. You've already clinched the division. You did it 2 weeks ago. And to see those guys just skating.
Or getting lucky with a capital L. I think that's safe to say.
How hard is it to, keep your attitude up and say, keep your foot on the gas knowing that you're going to have to earn it? And that doesn't seem like they have to.
It's like that, I always think about that, and it's kind of like that every year. We play them tough during the season, and we got to, get over that extra hump in the postseason. And that's something that I feel like I've been thinking about personally is that we know we're going to see them again and how they play and what they do and what it means to us as a team in the city of Buffalo. So with that mindset, I just try to think, they're going to get it how they get it. But whenever they see us again, we just got to do what we did last time and just get after them.
Right? Yeah. And then looking ahead, I mean, you're obviously got your focus on Detroit here. And you've been in that building probably a couple more times than most AFC teams, just by virtue of that relocated game a couple of years ago when you had to play Cleveland there, and then you played Detroit the very next week. And I know the teams are different than they were 2 years ago when you had to play them. That was Thanksgiving, right? Yeah. Thanksgiving. I mean, that was a game that went right down to the wire. Would you be terribly surprised if it's kind of nip and tuck all over again?
No, they're definitely a good team. They have a lot of great players, a lot of talented players from the offensive line to the from head to toe. They're a very talented team, and they're a well-coached team, and they play hard. So we know that coming in this game, it's going to be a street fight. It's going to be a physical game, especially with their run-minded offense, like you said, play-action boot.
Yeah.
And our defense plays light in the box, and so we just got to bring that physicality, that tenacity, and just some of that play a little angry, you know what I mean? Like just the physicality of the game is going to be up. And so we know that, and that's just going to be the mindset this week and attack,
you've been here for a handful of years, and you heard all the question marks about this team coming into the season, about all these new faces on defense, all these new guys on offense. Has it surprised you the season you guys have been able to put together? It's got to be a little bit like, wow, I didn't know we were going to answer all these questions. Like, yes, all the guys on your side of the ball, all the guys on the offensive side of the ball you didn't know about. And of course, then Josh, turns into the Hulk. Last week scored 6 touchdowns. I mean, the dude's unbelievable. You've got to take some gratification in your ability to win all these games, despite what happened last week. But both sides of the ball have, really, compared to where they were at the beginning of the season, have overachieved.
Yeah. Coach says it all the time, and it's something I really believe in too, is that this is a hard league to win in. Every team has the capability of beating every team. They're all NFL players. They're all professionals. And I'm going to be honest, it really doesn't surprise me with what we've done just because of the guys that we have in our building. The guys, when we came in during OTAs and we came in during camp, a lot of questions were brought up about this and that. But as we've gone and as I've seen people in person work through OTAs, through camp, through this season, it's just unbelievable to see guys do what they do to prepare themselves, and it makes you have so much more belief and trust in them because of what they're doing off the field to prepare themselves to be on the field, and so that gives me confidence to see it.
And I think the most impressive thing about the team this year, in addition to all the ways in which you adapted to new faces in the lineup and change to the roster, probably more change than you've had over the last several years, is the fact that you've had to rely on guys deeper on the depth chart, too, through certain stretches of this season. And guys have contributed, everybody on down the line. I mean, you can name 8, 9 guys that were not in starting roles at the beginning of the year, had to step in due to injuries over here, there, and everywhere. Everybody's making contributions.
Right.
I don't know what it is that's different about this year, but it just seems like everyone that has been called upon to step into a bigger role and contribute has come through for your team. I don't know that I've seen it to that degree before in the last few years.
No, 100%. It's to be in a backup role and to try and prepare the same way as a starter isn't always easy, because sometimes you get in there, sometimes you don't get in there, and that could be discouraging for people when it comes to preparation. They think they can lax on their preparation a little bit because, I'm not going to play this week. But we have a lot of guys, like I said, that are all about their preparation, all about this team, and where, they were in a backup role, something happens in the game, and they're more than ready to get on the field. And like you said, there's countless examples on this team, and I think it's just because of the mindset, that next man in mindset, and guys really buying into that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It's time for our Timbits Timeout question, and this one comes from Sarah this week, and she asks, what have you learned about yourself as a player having to adjust to different playing weights? This was more of a story early in your career.
Yeah.
You were up, you were down, they were trying to find the sweet spot with you. What was that like?
It was a little crazy at first, for sure. I came out of Iowa at 200 and almost 85 pounds, got to here, dropped to about 250, 255, and currently sitting at about 257, close to 260, and that's what we've kind of found as my sweet spot. But it was a challenge at first, just because getting to school, I was always a weight gain guy. I got there probably 250, 255, had to put on weight to be 280, and then go to drop in weight. It was a whole different world for me, and so it was hard at first. Definitely my first 3 years. I mean, that's a long time. It was me really just kind of fluctuating, getting heavy, getting low. They're like, AJ, you're a little too heavy this week. Oh, AJ, you're a little too light. And that's a mental strain in itself to have to try to do that.
Yeah, because you're trying to prepare for games.
Yeah.
You're trying to prepare for games, and it's like, oh, is my weight right? You don't want anything else to have to focus on.
Right. Yes, 100%. And that it was a little bit of a burden on me, but it was all about more so routine. Getting into a routine of eating at the same times, just making sure I'm eating the meals, make sure I get enough calories. Because as the season drags on, things start to get a little more difficult. You start to not feel the sensation of hunger. It's cold outside, and so some things like that. And I just started to, weight would just start to kind of flow off me, and I'd get lighter and lighter as the season goes. Not
to mention the fact that, and a lot of people forget this, you're the COVID class coming in. And I mean, that's a hard way to start a professional career. Isolation. Things are done differently than they had been done because of spacing and all of that stuff that happened. How much do you feel that that's not just a hurdle, that's a high hurdle for a rookie to clear when they're moving to the highest level of competitive football.
Yeah.
Like, how did you feel you I mean, you weren't alone. You had your draft class with you, but how did you feel you kind of navigated that first year? I think a lot of people forget about the challenges for guys like you.
Yeah, it was. COVID was an interesting year for sure. You know, we had to get here close to an hour early than, you know, you usually would, because you had to get tested and you have to wait a couple 20, 30 minutes until your test came back. You're good to go, come in the building. Meals, meeting rooms weren't the same. We had kind of just heat up lunches out there. So the food that we were offered isn't the same as it is now, but everything in town was closed, you know, and so all my only food options were here or what I would cook at home, and I'm not a very good cook, you know, so I didn't.
I'll bet you're better now, though.
Yeah, I've learned a little bit. I've learned a decent amount because I was forced, but you know, the access to food was a lot different back then too, and then just the stress of having that, you know, not being able to see people outside the facility because of the rules and all those different things that piled up, like you said, to make it more difficult. It was definitely a hard transition.
Well, we're glad to see that you came through it A-OK, and you know, you're contributing now on a weekly basis. So I'm glad it all worked out in the end here, because you know, that was a hill to climb for sure. AJ, thanks for the time. We appreciate it as always.